What is going on, guys? Welcome to another market update. So, the long awaited moment is here. As repeated in many of our videos on this and on my personal channel, we were building up a massive long-term consolidation pattern in the form of a bull flag that was bound to break to new highs sooner or later. Just like with the consolidation at 1k, we also needed to establish this 100k area as the norm before challenging even higher future resistance levels. We're now in uncharted territory, so it'll be interesting to see where the market makers will be taking us. I was going to say that I have a feeling that this move to the upside is not done yet, and we'll be moving higher sooner before seeing more consolidation. And sure enough, Bitcoin started moving higher on a Sunday before I could even record my thoughts. 120k would be our next logical resistance level. Before continuing with my thoughts, let's look at the power law indicators for more clarity. Let's start with the Bitcoin power law bands, and we finally have some movement here, guys. We're now well above the median power law, which is good news. So we're actually catching up to this exponential bubble projection over here. Let's see where we'll be going next, but things are looking very good so far. Next to the log lock graph. Same story over here, and we're following the bubble projection. So we only really need to go up by less than one deviation line here to reach the top, which is completely feasible considering we're still in July. So let's keep our hopes up. Next to the Bitcoin power law clock. It's currently 10:34 and Bitcoin is doing very well. We're still around the orange curve here, which is fantastic, but it's probably gonna go below the orange curve in the next few months or so, unless we're gonna have some sort of left translated cycle like last time. Next to the detrended oscillator relative to price. We're almost there, guys. We're about to hit bright orange, and we've been waiting for this for a very long time. Right now, technically, we're still at this darker orangish color over here, but that's gonna change soon. Once we get above around 120k or so, that's when we're gonna reach this orange level. And we're most likely gonna stay above these levels for around a year or so. That would also include parts of the bear market. But as of right now, we still have a lot of room to go to the upside. Next, let's look at the local Hurst exponent. And what did I tell you guys? It was very healthy for Bitcoin to have this little correction over here because this gave us all the fuel needed to go to much higher highs. And as you can see, we're doing something relatively unusual. We're reversing halfway down, or not even halfway down to the bottom over here, which is going to create an interesting topping pattern over here later, perhaps something that looks like a double top or a higher high even. Now let's see what Minotaur is up to. So our sample $10,000 sub account running the base settings, or in other words a 7% take profit with a 2% trailing stop, has closed two beautiful trades since our last video on this channel. Since the first trade laddered down with the downtrend, it had a larger profit when it finally exited compared to our recent single purchase trade over here. So the first trade closed with a $40 profit and the second trade closed with a more modest $24 profit or so. Because we're using Bitcoin collateral, we only need to periodically convert the USDT profits back into Bitcoin if we want to maintain the most efficient Bitcoin compounding strategy. You don't need to do this all the time, but I find it satisfying to convert monopoly money into hard money. I already converted the profits of the previous trade, so I'm just converting the newest cash injection into Bitcoin. When we go back to our assets overview, we can now see how we quite literally stacked some sats without spending any extra money. We can also go to our trading performance overview to see the two latest trades. Since I was also experimenting with a scalping strategy on this account before turning it into a sample 10k base settings account, it is also interesting to observe the visual difference between these two strategies. One strategy has lots of small trades, while the other one has a few massive trades, but both of them ultimately achieve the same thing. The scalping bot is better in ranging markets, while the base settings are better in trending markets. Now let's get to the news. First, we finally have the date for US perpetual style futures for Bitcoin. Coinbase is going to launch these futures on July 21st. This is also great news for Minotaur traders, because it will create a new way for US-based clients to do what the rest of the world can already do without any annoying workarounds. Apparently, futures trading represents 90% of total crypto trading activity, according to some reports. Futures trading is also what allows you to trade using Bitcoin collateral. I don't even want to talk about some other policy decisions of this administration, especially its foreign policy and the Epstein cover-up. But at least it's spot on regarding crypto regulation, even if it's just for benefiting Trump. I believe in personal freedom, and if you confirm that you know the risks associated with futures trading, you should have every right to do it. Knowing Coinbase, their fees are probably going to be ridiculous, so hopefully other exchanges will follow suit to bring some competition to the US crypto future space. For our next and last piece of news, we have corporations continuing to hoard Bitcoin for their treasuries. We've seen the trend for a while, but we now have some hard data to show you. So, corporate Bitcoin holdings surged in Q2, with companies adding a record of 159,107 Bitcoin, bringing total holdings to more than 847,000 Bitcoin. The figure marked a 23.13% quarter-on-quarter increase, bringing total crypto corporate Bitcoin holdings to 4% of the capped 21 million supply, according to data accumulated by Bitwise Asset Management. This chart shows the trends very clearly. It's funny how Strategy holds 12 times more Bitcoin than the next company on the list. This company's valuation is going to be astronomical in a decade or so. We also have some new names like 21 and Japan's Metaplanet, which is nice to see. Now, back to the charts. Let's start with the DXY. Poor DXY. Because the dollar is getting destroyed so badly while most of my trades, investments, and other income streams are dollar denominated, I can already start to feel the reduction in purchasing power here in Europe. The dollar is not even close to €1 anymore. I'm not complaining though, because Bitcoin is more than making up for this. Not everyone is so fortunate though. For support levels, we're probably gonna reach these by the end of the year or so, as we've been predicting. The trend is clearly going there. We just need to be a little bit more patient. The real fun is in observing Bitcoin's price action, however. Next to the M2 money shift for Bitcoin, and we've been telling you guys that this dip here in the M2 money shift was just being replicated by Bitcoin with an 85-day lag or so. But now Bitcoin has some catching up to do. Theoretically, we could reach 130k relatively soon, and even 160k by the end of September, if everything goes according to plan. But obviously these numbers don't have to be exact, it's the trend that matters. Right now things are looking fantastic. Finally, before returning to Bitcoin, let's compare Bitcoin to the S&P again. And Bitcoin is finally off the charts again, quite literally, while the S&P is also doing very well. But Bitcoin took back its dominant position, as usual. Now, let's look at the moving averages. And what can we see over here? Well, all of the moving averages are exactly where they're supposed to be in a raging bull market. Starting with the 20-day moving average on top, followed by the 50-day moving average, and the 100 and 200-day moving averages below these. And this is very good news. We want these to start widening and the trend increasing in its strength in the next few weeks or so. When looking at the weekly moving averages, we can see that we're very far away from all of the moving averages, even the 20-week moving average over here. And this is highly typical behavior for the mania phase of the bull market. Look at the previous examples over here. We typically go very far away from that 20-week moving average, only to revisit it during the bear market. And this is probably what we're going to do this time as well. The moving average itself has been stabilizing here for quite a while, and it's probably going to start moving up now that Bitcoin is pumping so hard. When looking at the breakout itself, I mean, this is textbook. we were following this bull flag for quite a while over here until we got our first breakout. We then had to retest this breakout. And this time we did it several times, which is actually quite typical for Bitcoin. We were really trying to squeeze out the last bulls who were losing hope here by barely closing below this line over here. And as you can probably tell, I was pretty skeptical of this, and I also said this in my previous video on my personal channel. We didn't have that bearish follow through to bring us back down over here, so I was just waiting anxiously and hoping that we would go above it again, and that's exactly what happened. We had a lot of bulls losing hope for no good reason. I mean, I understand this consolidation here was super boring and soul crushing, but when looking at the daily percentages, it really won't take a lot to reach our moon target of this cycle. This doesn't look even that out of place, especially considering that the last phase of the mania phase is usually the most parabolic. If you're interested in the Minotaur trading system, then make sure to schedule a free appointment by clicking on the link in the description. All of you guys have been so amazing, and I really enjoy helping you guys set up your first bots. And you're the reason why we keep going. My personal channel also reached 1000 subscribers recently, so huge thanks to all of you guys. My next video will likely be on that channel again, so make sure to check that one out as well. This is Saverio speaking, and as always, thanks for watching.